Our media, unfortunately, here in the U.S. has been beating the war drums against Iran. And they are doing one report after another that makes it appear as if, to the average viewer, as if Iran is the one that is being belligerent and bellicose. Now, remember, we're the ones that are threatening to attack Iran all the time. Now, you could have different opinions on whether we should or we shouldn't, how concerned we should be about their nuclear program, whether they are at some later point going to turn into a weapons program, which it currently is not. Okay, those are open for debate. But it's obvious that we're the ones threatening them. Iran did not start this. I mean, that's just a fact, right? But if you watch these reports, and by the way, in the middle of the report, sometimes they'll slip it in response to American threat. But the overall feeling these reports leave you with, like, oh my God, Iran's going to attack us at any moment. First, here's NBC.
Because of tougher U.S. sanctions, Iran has already threatened to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, that vital passageway for much of the world's oil. And if Israel launches airstrikes against Iran's nuclear program, Iranian leaders have threatened all-out war. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet would be the world's first line of defense. And its commander, Vice Admiral Mark Fox, said today they're prepared to take on just about anything Iran throws at them. U.S. officials warn, however, that Iran's massive stockpile of ballistic missiles is the more serious threat. And within just the past few days, Iranian leaders have threatened that if attacked, they would launch those missiles at U.S. targets in this region.
Did you catch all that? If attacked, they will launch their multi-ballistic missiles against us. And they show the missiles, and they show Ahmadinejad saying something. Who knows if he was saying, I had a tuna fish sandwich for lunch, but he looks menacing. Look at Ahmadinejad. Oh, my God. And if we are attacked, we are prepared to match Iran's aggression. Yeah, but wait a minute. You're forgetting that the way that this whole thing would start is if we bomb their nuclear sites, okay? Not if Iran bombed us. But if you notice, he kept saying, if we do that, then Iran says it'll be all-out war. But of course it'll be all-out war because we bombed them. Like, imagine if they did the report the other way. If the United States bombs Iran, then it'll be all-out war. Yeah, that's right. Okay, but the emphasis is all in the wrong places. Again, you know, Miklashevsky there says, because of tougher sanctions, Iran is threatening to block the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, but that's because we did sanctions on them. Again, you might agree or disagree with the sanctions, but you can't say that it's their fault for preparing to retaliate if we bomb the living crap out of them. Well, it's not just NBC. Here's ABC.
The evidence of a kind of shadow war now being waged by Iran around the world. Tonight, Israeli and Jewish facilities everywhere, including here in the U.S., are on heightened alert. Overseas, today, 3 U.S. warships defied Iranian threats and entered the vital oil gateway, the Strait of Hormuz.
And it appears to be hit squad versus hit squad, with the FBI telling ABC News tonight it is worried the violence could spill over to the U.S. Israeli diplomatic facilities and Jewish places of worship in at least 10 U.S. cities have been told they could be targets, following what appears to be the increasingly violent series of attacks by Iran in apparent retaliation for the assassination of 5 Iranian scientists.
We are concerned about use of international terrorism by Iran or by anybody else against Israel or against any other innocents, and about a spike in the number of incidents that we've seen.
Israel had already blamed Iran for the 2 attacks Monday, including the bombing of an Israeli embassy car in India, which seriously injured the wife of an Israeli diplomat, and the failed bombing of a vehicle outside the Israeli embassy in the country of Georgia.
I think Iran is not only retaliating for the embarrassment of having its nuclear scientists killed in its own capital, but it's also sending Israel a message that if Israel bombs Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran can retaliate around the world through its terrorist network.
Now, get a load of the tricks in there, right? First of all, they show the pictures of the bombings. They say Israel says that this is Iran. Now, do they have evidence that it was Iran that did the bombings in Georgia, India, et cetera? Not necessarily, but we take Israel's word for it. And you know what? I don't think that's an outlandish theory, but you should make that a little bit clearer. But much more importantly, they show you all those pictures and the bombings, and then they say, oh, the wife of the diplomat was injured, et cetera. But what they don't show you is what they mentioned in passing again, in retaliation for killing their scientists. But wait a minute. I don't know if it was Israel or the United States, but whoever it was struck the Iranians first, killed a number of civilian Iranian scientists, murdered them. In two different instances, they also killed their wife. In one of the instances, they killed them in front of their kids' kindergarten. Now, do you see pictures of dead bodies in front of kindergartens? Do you see, and a civilian scientist who was working at a university's wife and himself slaughtered in front of their own kids? No, you don't see that. You just see her in retaliation for killing them. Oh, look at the bombings Iran has done. Now, I'm not saying either side is innocent on this, and you'd have to have more evidence to figure out who exactly killed the Iranian scientists and who exactly went after the Israeli diplomats. But show it fair, show both sides instead of doing this warmongering. And then the more important part is in the beginning, they could strike us. Oh my God, it's coming! They could be here. They could be in the malls. They could be hitting places of worship. And this is the exact same kind of thing, and Glenn Greenwald points this out, even points to old articles right before the Iraq War, where he talks about, or they said, Saddam Hussein, in retaliation for what we do, could do bombings inside the United States. We have to attack him right away, which, by the way, is so counterintuitive. Well, if he's going to do bombings inside the U.S. in retaliation, then maybe we shouldn't attack him for no reason. But of course, that's long gone because we're in the middle of warmongering. Same thing is happening with Iran, but this is the best part. So Glenn went to ABC's website to see what evidence they had on these imminent attacks inside the United States by Iran. Here's what he found. Quote, federal officials told ABC News that there is so far no specific intelligence of any threat to Israeli interests in the U.S. In other words, we just did that whole long piece of propaganda saying, oh my God, Iran is so dangerous and they can attack us at any moment, when we know that we have no evidence of any of that happening inside the U.S. Thank you for your journalism, ABC News, and the rest of this establishment media that apparently can't wait to push us into war with Iran. I'm sorry, that would actually talk about how Iran attacked us after we bombed them.